afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our new and reimagined Toys for Engineers event, which we'll be bringing you live via toys4engineers.ie and our Waterford Chamber Facebook page over the next 3 days. We have 3 very interesting panel discussions lined up for you over the coming days, starting today with the digitalisation of manufacturing. This panel will be chaired by Brendan McDonald of the IDA, and we thank IDA for sponsoring today's conference. Before I hand you over to Brendan, I just wanted to let you know of what else is happening over the 3 days. We began this morning with the first of our Meet the Buyer sessions. These will be running all day for the next 3 days, during which time we'll be connecting Indigenous companies and multinational companies in the hope of them doing business together. And this has been a collaborative effort between ourselves, IDA Ireland, Enterprise Ireland, and in these times, more than ever, any support we can give our business community is so important. We're delighted to be joined by companies from across the country, and I sincerely hope there's good business done through these introductions. In addition, we have our digital expo. You will have seen a selection of videos at the start of our stream, and there are more coming after our panel discussion. So please take the time to watch these videos over the coming days. They may just have the service or product you need, and we'd be happy to connect you. In addition, we're encouraging anybody looking to move to Waterford to review the large amount of live roles which are currently available. And thanks to the support of Crystal Valley Tech, we have a video showcasing these jobs on Toys for Engineers. Waterford offers the very best in terms of quality of life, great schools, cheaper houses, and much more. So we hope you'll find your dream job there today. Finally, I would like to thank everyone who contributed to making this event happen in light of COVID-19. It would have been so much easier to say, no, we're not going ahead with this year's event, but that's not certainly our style. And I sincerely hope that you'll benefit from our offering. So I'd also like to thank our daily sponsors, IDA Ireland, Cobotic Skillnet, and the Waterford Local Enterprise Office, and to Enterprise Ireland and Crystal Valley Tech for their hard work. And last but by no means least, a special thank you to Waterford City and County Council, who are our overall sponsors. Last March, at the beginning of the lockdown, the Chief Executive, Michael Walsh, said to me that he really wanted this particular event to go ahead, and they have put their full support behind it. And we're delighted we could fulfill our commitment and look forward to lots of business being done over the next 3 days. So without further ado, thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. And can I please hand you over to our moderator for the day's session, Brendan McDonald. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. You're all very welcome to this virtual conference today. We're going to get straight into it because we have about an hour to run through a few questions and get some insights into digitalization of manufacturing from a number of panelists that we have today. And I'm just going to, I suppose, hand you over to them in a second. So we have 4 panelists that are going to bring us through various different questions and topics over the course of the next hour. So we have Dr. Toby Sainsbury, my colleague from IDA Ireland. We have Megan Staunton from Astellas in Kerry. We have Brendan Shephard from smartfactory.ie and Andrew Hickey from Depuy. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to just very briefly introduce themselves. So I'll hand you over to Toby first.
Hi, good afternoon. Toby Sainsbury. I'm the IDA Technologist for Engineering and Industrial Technologies. My remit is to drive the technology and innovation agenda across the client base. So IDA Ireland is one of the largest funders of research and development in the state, and we fund client companies behind the scenes and also in collaborative research, increasingly now towards megatrend areas. So Industry 4.0 development of technology, connected health, process development, connected autonomous vehicle technology. So we have a huge spectrum of R&D that's going on behind the scenes and sometimes in the public setting, in collaboration with research centers and universities and institutes of technology. So it's my job to push that agenda across the client base.
Very good, and we'll come back to Toby in a minute. I'm going to pop over to Megan and ask her to just briefly introduce herself as well.
Hi, so my name is Megan Staunton and I'm the Site Facilities Engineer and Site Energy Lead for the Astellas plant in Clorglan, County Kerry. I suppose Astellas is a pharmaceutical company. We produce finished goods pharmaceuticals for the global market from Clorglan, providing pharmaceutical products to over 114 countries. Astellas is a Japanese company formed through the merger of Fujisawa and Yamanouchi in 2005. I suppose the Astellas site here in Clorglan has made sustainability a cornerstone of their philosophy moving forward, and Astellas recognises its responsibility to proactively incorporate sustainability through innovation and the incorporation of national and international standards in energy and environmental design. So this has allowed us to achieve a 95% reduction in carbon emissions since 2005. We also we use 23 million kilowatt hours of energy every year, but 63% of this is generated on site from renewable technologies. We have a biomass boiler, a site wind turbine, we utilise solar PV on site, and we've adopted energy efficient design into all of our projects moving forward.
Excellent, thanks Megan. I might pop down to Cork now to Andrew.
Hey everyone. Andrew Hickey. So I'm the Advanced Engineering Manager for Depuy Synthèse. So I'm actually, as you can see here, I'm currently in a room in Tipperary, but I'm primarily based in our Innovation Centre in Ringaskiddy in Cork. So my role within Advanced Engineering, the whole, I suppose, vision and mission of our function is to source, test, and deploy technologies and systems to provide, I suppose, transformational manufacturing value across our overall network in joints. And maybe just a bit of background on Depuy Synthèse. So we're a global orthopedic company supplying a range of orthopedic products from full knee reconstruction products to hip reconstruction, shoulders, and we also then manufacture and supply trauma and spine products globally. So looking forward to giving some insights into the group here and to everyone on the call around, I suppose, what we're really doing in the digitalization space, and particularly focused on giving some insights in relation to an award a number of our sites have received in the last year or two for making us a global lighthouse on Industry 4. So looking forward to sharing some of our insights on that today.
Very good, thanks Andrew. And to my fellow Brendan in Limerick, Brendan Shephard from Smart Factory, over to you.
Thanks very much, Brendan. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Brendan Shephard. I'm the CEO of Smart Factory. We're based in the University of Limerick campus in the Nexus Innovation Centre. And our focus is around digital transformation and the digital transformation specifically of manufacturing. So we're working with primarily medical device and consumer goods companies in Ireland, in the US, and we've done projects in the last 12 months in Mexico and Japan, just about to start a project in Switzerland. So it's become a global business for us, and particularly now in the COVID-19 restrictions and all the rest, remote access and remote connectivity has become really important. So that's some of the topics we'll talk about in a little bit more detail later on. Nice to meet you all.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Brendan. I suppose in the first instance, I want to just thank Waterford City and County Council for sponsoring the event today, as well as IDA Ireland, who are sponsoring this event today on Tuesday. I might just ask you all to have a look, if you're on Twitter as well, to use the hashtag Toys4Engineers20, and we're following that on Twitter, and we can pick up any questions anyone has if you want to ask any of the panelists a question. So straight over to Toby then. Digitalization of manufacturing, Toby. I suppose it's definitely a topic that's, I suppose, very current with a lot of the companies that we deal with in IDA Ireland, and indeed a lot of the multinationals globally. Can you maybe take us through what it means from the point of view of companies and their transformational journeys.
Sure. Well, I suppose, Brendan, thinking about the IDA, our remit is foreign direct investment. So we are not only concerned with getting the companies into Ireland and contributing to the economy, but also when the companies are here, we're extremely we're always concerned with how well they're doing, how competitive they are, and as part of that competitiveness, digitization of manufacturing and the overall efficiency, it has really emerged as a key differentiating factor to sustaining manufacturing in Ireland. Manufacturing in Ireland contributes approximately 36% of our GDP, so it's extremely important. So to adopt and deploy digital technologies to enable greater efficiency, lower cost, has really been a key mission as part of the IDA strategy. Typically, we've done that through sometimes it's an initial foray into technologies, specific technologies, and that's enabled through R&D mechanisms. So there's quite expansive remit for large-scale R&D across many of the client companies, and what we've seen then is progression from these islands of automation or islands of technology, then into integrating them into the main business of the company. So there's a real progression in our client base to adopt and deploy, integrate, and to demonstrate and leverage the benefits of digital technologies. So either harvesting data, leveraging that data to actually save money and to become more efficient. So that's been a huge trend we've seen in the last 10 years. Also partnership and collaboration. Companies are realizing that to sustain themselves and to pivot perhaps into new areas, they can't do it under one roof. They need to partner with technology companies and work in collaboration and synergy to create these outcomes. A main progression is also not just the deployment of non-intelligent technology, so simple technologies just to do their thing. We see AI now creeping in more and more, so that systems, machines and systems are aware of how they're running, are also able to diagnose preventative maintenance, to almost repair themselves, to be aware of material flows and safety features, and also just to connect with each other, to work in tandem. So artificial intelligence is really a big topic, as well as data analytics, leveraging data for value. I suppose they're the main trends that I'm seeing at the moment, and we try and push this technology adoption.
Very good. And we might just pop over to Andrew just in relation to some of the initiatives that you guys are working on, especially from a collaboration perspective. You might tell us about the McKinsey Lighthouse Factory initiative that you guys were involved with. I suppose the technology adoption at scale piece. I suppose why apply and what does it bring to your site?
So basically, if I just take a step back first then, right, as part of a Johnson & Johnson company, about 2 to 3 years ago, the overall company recognized the total shift or change, I suppose, in everything related to Industry 4. Right, as part of that, a Johnson & Johnson-wide initiative was created across all our various segments. Okay, so from our consumer business to our med device to our pharma. And as part of that initiative, basically the tagline of that initiative was manufacturing for the future. So driving customer value via innovation and digitization. Right, that was, I suppose, that was the overall concept. So as part of that, one core initiative was, and I think it was something someone mentioned when we were chatting before we came online, around let's not just look at what we have internally, but try and take a step back and look outside of your own four walls of your manufacturing plant and understand what's happening. So as part of that overall Johnson & Johnson initiative, Depuy Synthèse, we engaged with the World Economic Forum, who are partnered up with the McKinsey Group. And that overall initiative was to, I suppose, build, develop and sustain a global lighthouse network across the various geographical regions. So the global lighthouse, just to kind of give everyone a feel for what actually is it. So the network is, I suppose, seen as industry leaders who are at the forefront in adoption of scale of Industry 4 technologies. Okay, at a scaling level across various geographical regions. And as of June 2020 this year, there's currently 52 or 54 lighthouse sites globally. And I suppose what's that in that for us, right? One of the main things we're getting out of this is some of those sites, they're not just within the medical device arena or the pharma arena. We have now insights into what's happening in the oil and gas industry, what's happening in the automotive, what's happening in the aerospace, and what's happening in the electronic space. So really, you get a good visibility, you get to have a chat with your peers, colleagues that are already all working, we're all working towards the same, I suppose, smart factory concept, right? Whether no matter what industry you're in, but it really gives you some use case examples, real life use case of what's happening within the four walls of manufacturing, from a digitization, new technology perspective, but also as well, what's happening outside of the four walls. And what I mean by that is how are companies now looking at connecting their manufacturing operations to their external supply chain and how that all works. So really, as part of that overall assessment, Depuy Synthes in Cork, we were the first Johnson & Johnson and Ireland site to participate in this assessment. So it was a fairly rigorous assessment evaluation where there was a number of on-site visits and evaluations and submission reports to, I suppose, be categorized as acceptable to enter the lighthouse. And maybe if I just give very high level some of the key, I suppose, dimensions that were looked at, it's all about kind of in terms of productivity. What are we applying from a digital perspective that's driving improvements in our overall factory output, our OEE? So really focused on how we've set up our digital systems architecture, our business systems, what's our data ingestion strategy, what's our visualization strategy, how's that being embedded across the various business units. Sustainability was a big one. I know, Megan, you'll probably talk about, aspects that you're looking in there. So as part of that lighthouse, the sustainability was a big piece. The site in Cork has done significant amount around, wind turbine installation and usage, solar, etc. So a lot happening in that space. Around agility, so how are we using digitization now to drive agility? Particularly, I suppose now it's becoming ever more apparent in the pandemic that we have, right? How are we quickly reducing lead times, doing changeovers more quickly than ever? Speed to market was a big dimension or an assessment for a lighthouse, and customization. So how are we changing our business model to produce more personalized products for our customers, whether that be from 3D printing of orthopedic implants to personalized supply of contact lenses within our Johnson & Johnson segment. So hopefully that gave you some insights into what the lighthouse is all about. But for us, it really is giving us that outside perspective that sometimes we may not look for, and really, really good just to understand how others are approaching their digital strategy, albeit in a different industry. I think from a competitiveness point of view, you can share knowledge in a certain way that doesn't, I suppose, affect your competitive advantage. And that's something I think is really, really beneficial of this lighthouse network that we're engaged in.
Very good. Thanks very much for those insights. We might come back to you in a few minutes just in relation to some of maybe the practical things that you guys have implemented on site. But I want to move on and across the road to Kerry, to Megan. And I suppose, Megan, as a site energy leader, how do you find that the energy piece is tied into the digitalization of manufacturing on your site?
Yeah, so I suppose, kind of as Andrew alluded to, it is a core piece because you can't improve what you do not measure. And I suppose the thing about energy performance and improving energy performance is that you have to be able to measure it. You have to know what you're using. You have to be able to meter and control it. So I suppose a core aspect, especially initially when we were looking at making sustainability a cornerstone of what we do, was you have to know what you have, and also you have to be able to control it. So control is a massive key piece to it. I suppose from a wind turbine point of view, obviously we have that synchronized with our grid aspect, and then that produces about 20% of our electrical load. From a biomass point of view, that produces 95% of our thermal load. And we have that synchronized with a backup oil boiler on site, that when we need to bring the biomass down for maintenance, or if we have any issues, we can bring in the oil boiler as well. So they're all synchronized together, and we basically have the building and the site acting dynamically together, and so that we don't see any issues. I suppose the other aspect of that is, I suppose, looking for continual improvement. In order for us to make energy savings, we have to target what are our significant energy users, our HVACs, our chill waters, all of those aspects. So we need to identify those, and we use digitalization to do that through metering, through smarter applications and smarter incorporations of design. So we built a new building on site that finished in 2018. This was the first Astellas manufacturing site to utilize American design standard LEED. And the whole kind of aspect of that is that LEED allows the evaluation of environmental performance from a whole building perspective, looking at the life cycle. So that was particularly where digitalization, and because we knew what we had and we knew what we wanted to improve to, that allowed us to make a very dynamic building that was future-proof to allow us to control and to ramp up and down in line with as the site grows. We knew we wanted to grow and expand, but we wanted to do so sustainably.
And just in relation to the, I suppose, the wood chip boiler and the wind turbine, how did you guys go about, I suppose, selling that internally, and I suppose more so to corporate, to get that buy-in from the perspective of the next generation of energy provision on site? Because it is quite unusual. There's not a huge amount of examples of it around the country.
Yeah, no, and obviously it was a big part of it. I suppose, look, we're very lucky that on-site senior management were very keen, and very aware of, look, we are in Clorglen, we're the first stop on the Ring of Kerry. There's that kind of aspect of it where we have that kind of buy-in from the community to kind of be as sustainable as possible. But I suppose the other aspect of it is that we are not on the national gas grid. So we were using a significant amount of oil. In 2011, when we installed the oil boiler, we would have been using upwards of 700,000 litres of oil. The site has grown by 50% since then. So last year, if we were running on oil, we'd have used 1.2 million litres of oil. That's a massive CO2 aspect. That's a massive cost aspect. So we went to Astellas globally, and obviously there's a push globally the same way that there would be from Johnson & Johnson, that there is a movement towards green business, reduction of carbon footprint, reduction of costs, but also this makes us more competitive from a global standpoint, not with other pharmaceutical sites, but other Astellas sites, saying that we can do things more efficiently. Our cost per unit package came down, our energy use per unit package came down, our carbon use per unit package came down. So all of those aspects are part of what the Kerry plant used to kind of make this very attractive to corporate HQ.
Very good, and we might come back and talk a little bit more about some of the initiatives in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to move over to Brendan Shephard now. And I suppose, Brendan, the Smart Factory mission is to be the global leader in digital transformation for manufacturing companies. What, to your mind, does that actually mean from a practical point of view for companies?
I think a lot of companies are struggling with the whole digital transformation concept. I think everybody's heard of, the Airbnb and the Uber cases around digital transformation, and what a positive impact it can have, but also what a negative impact it can have on people's businesses. So everybody's aware that digital transformation is really important in manufacturing, but there's an awful lot of confusion out there. There's an awful lot of hype and an awful lot of people uncertain about what they need to do. Where do they stand? They start, so you've got some companies that are, they've got legacy equipment that might be perfectly good, but maybe it's 15 years old. And then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got companies that got brand new cutting edge robotics and highly automated systems. And then you've got some companies in between that have both. So what we see the opportunity for us is to be able to go into these companies and to offer, almost like a mentoring and a hand-holding process to say, look, here's what best in class looks like. Here's what the future could look like for your organization, for your company, for your supply chain. And then, that's overwhelming for a lot of companies. We've got companies that are losing paper on the factory floor. They're losing products on the factory floor. They spend hours trying to find them. So how do you go from this utopia of autonomous systems, but actually your starting point is you've got good lean manufacturing or good operational excellence systems in place. So we see the opportunity for us is around providing companies a roadmap, if you like, on where are you now and where do you want to get to. So for some companies, autonomous systems is not relevant. It'll never be part of their reality because they're involved in highly specialized discrete manufacturing. So there's no point in talking about those types of technologies when it's not relevant. But for example, AI, machine learning, the power of data. I mean, data is becoming so important. Everything, whether it's sustainability projects, OE projects, efficiency, whatever, and the value of what that data can do for you. So that's what we're ultimately what we're doing is we're selling people data, their data, and how to try and use that data to optimize their processes.
Yeah, and you touched on lean manufacturing there, and I suppose it would be remiss of me not to mention the lean programs that we run in conjunction with Enterprise Ireland with IDA. And I suppose from a quick win perspective, Brendan, what can a company do to start on that journey of transformation? Because we're not all a Depuy or an Astellas, but we might be a smaller SME company, for example. And I know a lot of folks who are watching today are from smaller companies. So what can they do to start on that journey or to start the process and thought process?
I think the mistake a lot of companies made is they focus on the technology. And what we try to do is help focus people on the problem. What problem are you trying to solve? And start small, start simple. Look at a problem and say, okay, in 8 weeks, how can we eliminate this problem? So a real agile approach to say, have we clear understanding of the problem we're trying to fix and the business value that's going to create? Because a lot of people have technology that they're looking for a home to find for that technology. So the objective really is around, here's my biggest problems. Here's the stuff, if I'm in manufacturing, here's the stuff that keeps me awake at night. Is that competitiveness? Is it safety? Is it environmental? So there's no shortage of issues. But to identify the most pressing issues that are going to create the best value in terms of the effort and the investment, and then say, okay, how can we get everybody on board? Engagement is huge. One of the things that I see is really important, and the companies that do really well are the companies that from a leadership point of view have the vision and say, we want to go there. We're going to enable the teams, we're going to empower the teams to make these changes. So having the vision and having the culture, that's really important. And then a clear focus on the business value of these problems. So that's I suppose our belief is start by understanding the problem, then applying the right technology to fixing those problems.
Very good. We might just pop back to Toby on that. I suppose, Toby, in relation to some of the projects that you have worked with companies, obviously without divulging any names, what kind of things are you seeing from a quick win point of view, and how I suppose we or other state agencies can help in a collaborative manner to help them, get on that journey?
Sure. Yeah, Brendan, we support R&D projects across a broad range of topics. One of those could be 3D printing. There are companies, there are companies that are up and running them at scale, and that's extremely impressive. But there's other companies that are still exploring, the benefits, so that they can pilot these. They can pilot additive manufacturing technology. They can evaluate whether it's going to bring benefits to their business. And there's a huge ecosystem of support around that. So whatever the technical topic we pick, there's a network of research centers and academic institutions that support that agenda. So the type of projects we're doing typically in this digital technology, additive manufacturing is an example, connected and autonomous vehicles. There's systems integration, new products and services, digital products and services involving sensors and IoT. So we're piloting all these type technical areas at different scales. So from small discrete projects to extremely large and expansive site-wide technology implementation. So we're driving the agenda hard. We have approximately in the life sciences and engineering area about $1 billion spend in R&D across the client base per year. We come in and support that agenda with our support mechanisms, and try and connect those companies to either to each other, to learn from each other, or to exemplars in each of the spaces and the research centres.
Very good. And I suppose we should remind companies that are not IDA clients that obviously if you are an Enterprise Ireland client, that you can reach out to your project officer in Enterprise Ireland as well and start on that journey. I suppose we're just coming to the halfway point. So if I can ask Dean to play the video, we're going to be offline for just 2 minutes on a quick video, folks. So just stand by and we'll resume the conversation in 2 minutes.
It was important that we had the right quality of staff, ecosystem and environment to work with, and obviously the Southeast was delivering that.
In terms of the quality of life down here, yeah, I love it. So in the summertime particularly, I'm able to get to the beaches after work, which is absolutely brilliant.
Kilkenny is at the heart of the agriculture knowledge and technology in Ireland.
Going through the country looking for some great locations, and we settled on Waterford and Sligo for obvious reasons. They're beautiful places, they have great culture, great technology institutes, and a great opportunity for us to expand our services.
There's a strong agri-tech group of people available in the Kilkenny region, along with all the other agri-tech companies and the colleges. So there's a really strong pool of people for us to be able to work with down here.
Got, as it stands at the minute, 101 ICT companies in the Southeast that are part of the Crystal Valley umbrella. Having that community where you can actually talk and discuss with peers, bounce ideas, look for tips and hints, get mentorship and give mentorship, it helps everybody rise within the whole sector.
The quality of life here in Waterford is great. It's very easy to get around. The people here are very kind and opening and warm-hearted. I couldn't be more pleased with moving to Waterford, and it feels like home.
Thanks very much, Dean, for playing that video. So that's just a snap of some of the marketing materials that we use in IDA. So we have different ones for different regions, and we're obviously selling the Southeast region as much as we can in this pandemic era online at the minute with virtual itineraries. So that's, I suppose, how we've adopted our business model at the moment to try and bring companies in virtually into the Southeast and obviously into Waterford. So I might just go back to Andrew again, just in relation to some of the initiatives that you've run on site, Andrew. What kind of collaborative measures have you been involved in on site, and what kind of advice do you give to people who are maybe starting out on the journey? Because you guys are obviously a little bit further down the line maybe than most. So what would you see there as being a key kind of things people should look for?
No problem, Brendan. So I think maybe just going back to the point that Brendan Shephard raised just before the ads there, right? I think one of the key pieces that everyone needs to ensure they don't fall into that trap is getting on the hype train of Industry 4 emerging technologies, right? And actually missing the whole point about it. And that really is getting to the center of, I think, Brendan, as you put it, what is the problem statement? So what is the why you're trying to solve? Because not in every instance you need to invest significantly on digital systems or analytics or advanced analytics or AI to solve, a fairly fundamental problem that can be solved in other basic engineering principle ways, right? So that's one of the core things. However, when I can give some perspective on how we've approached our digital transformation journey, right? And the first piece to that is definitely understanding the why in various areas. So you have to have a target dollar opportunity in your mind in various areas, whether that be the productivity space, the sustainability space, etc. Right? There's 4 kind of core areas that we defined as a global strategy, right, to make us effective. So the first one is all around our connection approach. Okay, so we have a very clear global standard or blueprint on machine or business system connection. So, for example, we've probably 2,500 different types of assets globally, all various age profiles, some 15 years old, some 1 year old, right? But having a very clear data connection protocol at the asset connection level has been critical for us to ensure we can quickly, I suppose, scale our data ingestion very fast. So that's the one piece. The connection piece on an asset level and also a business system level is foundational. The second phase, and I think Megan, you really explained it very well. You have to understand what's actually happening now before you can move into the phase of prediction or preventative maintenance. So where we've really focused our efforts over the last 2 to 3 years is that connection phase, ensuring our critical assets that cause constraints are connected, and then in our monitor and describe phase. So we have, I suppose, matured our descriptive analytics. So just taking what is the machine saying it's doing and providing that in a very simple and efficient way to the customer on the floor, whether that be operations, quality, etc. Right? That's been a massive part of it. And I don't even want to underestimate the importance of ensuring that we're not just creating analytical tools for the sake of doing it. The operator model that we've put in place is all around ensuring the right person is engaged to help co-develop those solutions. So for example, our analytics model is built where we have a specific product owner who understands the manufacturing process, right? So maybe 2-3 years ago, we jumped headfirst in working with a really specific data scientist group to give them a whole host of data. But what we found is translating the actual manufacturing output in a way that a data scientist can understand it and get insights from it has been core. So having the right people with the right skill sets in that monitor and describe phase has absolutely been critical to us. So really that standard data blueprint in terms of architecture, asset connection, analytics approach, and most importantly then, what is the process or governance around ensuring your analytics tools are used in production or on the manufacturing floor. So again, they've been really, I suppose, lessons learned from our side, not just create a technology solution because that's the hype at the time, making sure the tool is developed in a way that the customer can use. And that is, I would say, a couple of things as well. Leadership buy-in across all the functions in the business has been critical to that, right? Ensuring that all their functions are aligned to one standard global strategy on connection and analytics. And then secondly, most importantly, upskilling the individuals who are going to use these tools, right? It'd be wrong for all of us to, I suppose, just expect individuals to understand, interpret the data from an analytical data sheet. That's something that we've had to bridge a gap, and to do that, we've even collaborated directly with the Global Skills Net team in Ireland to help, I suppose, shape some of those courses on data scientists, data citizen, advanced manufacturing. And then also a big part of it is we are, as part of our open innovation model, connected with a whole range, whether that's the IDA, Enterprise Ireland, the various universities and institutes all around Ireland. That is core. I suppose feeding back what we need into the universities and institutes, so to make sure that the engineer of the future is developed as well to satisfy our needs, in the next 2-3 years as well, has been core. So I think out of this, in summary, that clear global strategy on connection, your analytics approach has been absolutely paramount, and that really has enabled us to scale very quickly globally, I would say, on our data analytics products for that very reason.
Very good. Thanks for your thoughts on that, Andrew. I'll move on to Megan again. And I suppose, Megan, this time with your facilities hat on, we've talked about the energy piece. What do you see when you're looking to put in maybe a new line or reconfigure something on site? What is your thought process around that as a site as regards digitalization of manufacturing?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I suppose from a facilities point of view, we are looking to apologies now, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Apologies. From a facilities point of view, we are looking to incorporate efficient design into it. So we have come up with a new framework for basically all projects moving forward, where we target where we would like the lines of the future or the equipment or the future to be smarter. So this looks at all of its critical utilities, be it electrical, steam, from a heating, ventilation, air conditioning point of view, how we would like those systems to be dynamic and to react dynamically to constantly changing environments. Because I suppose, realistically speaking, even if we look at COVID and stuff like that, you never know what's going to change, and what parameters are important to you now mightn't be important to you in the future. So by building in kind of systems that can be more dynamic, or can ramp up and down, or can change how they operate, but still give you the same end goal, has become a key aspect for us. So that's a main focus moving forward, and making sure that everything we do, we keep kind of the core goal of waste minimization. Like the same as Andrew has said, is that you can go for the big fancy projects, your wind turbines and your biomass boilers and your solar PVs, but really the first goal is looking at what you have and going, okay, is this operating to the best of its abilities? And if it's not, what are the issues? And I suppose we're applying that across all of our utility systems on site, and maybe 2020 has been a driver of this in a massive way, because you maybe have time to do things that you didn't have before, or you're looking at things and how they operate differently because what you require from them is different. So even looking at our heating, ventilation, air conditioning, if we have so many people work from home, do we want to step these back? But also you want to increase airflows because you want to make sure that there is no risk on site with regards to contamination and stuff like that. So all of those things are becoming a key aspect, and building in future-proofing from a digital point of view, everything to be reactive and future-proof to regards to vibrational monitoring and integration with other plant equipment. Like, do the lights interact with the HVAC? Do they interact with other utilities as well? That's a key aspect.
Yeah, and we just, I suppose, go to one of the questions that we've received on Twitter from Rachel Finn. Probably best for Brendan, but I'm going to ask the question in a slightly different way to Megan. So the question is, how do you assist organizations to improve the quality of their data so that they can get the most out of it, especially with legacy systems? So to you, Megan, I suppose, in relation to the site, how do you marry the various data points from the various systems to make sure you are getting the best out of I suppose the systems, and for you guys to use that data effectively?
I suppose a key corner of what we do is that we look at not just, okay, you look at the system and the information it's giving you, but also you look at what is the application and then building back from that. So obviously you have systems that have been in place for 20 years that aren't dynamic, they don't react as well, but they still work, they still give you the end goal. And I suppose it's managing those systems and taking the information that you can from them to optimize them in that way. And then with maybe like a newer system, is looking at the different data points that gives you, and maybe what a newer, more dynamic system can tell you about an older system, and maybe issues that you're having there. So like, we would have new systems that would have direct drive motors, and our older systems would have fan belted motors, and those kind of, the reaction of the motor to different stresses from a direct drive point of view can tell you actually, oh, that's why that's always happened with our older motors. It's kind of using all of those as learnings and kind of saying, okay, yes, the technology is moving on, but it's all still informing each other.
So again, you're taking a deep dive look at the systems you have in place and seeing how you can them in a different manner, perhaps, or overlay some new technologies onto them. So I suppose the same question to Brendan Shephard then, how do you assist organizations in improving the quality of their data, or what kind of pitfalls have you seen when you go in and look at company systems? And I suppose if you can give us maybe an example or two of what you've seen.
Yeah, I think we see this as a very common issue, and to me, we started looking at the source of the data. So if you take a machine vendor, they might make a perfectly good machine, and in their SCADA system, they will have an alarm for every possible event that happens. So take an example of a filling machine, and something blocks on the nozzle of the filling machine. So the operator has to go in, open the doors, then they get an alarm, then they have to reset the head, they get another alarm, maybe go around the back. So for one event, you get maybe 12 alarm messages on the display, on the HMI. The issue is, if you're trying to analyze that data, you don't know which one is the one that caused your problem and the one that was as a result of your problem. So we talk about first out fault, and in the system architecture, when we're designing a system, we design it around the concept of a first out fault, that you want to know what was the event that caused your problem and ignore all of the other events. And what gets reported in your loss analysis and in your PERT analysis is the first out fault. And this is really crucial. And a lot of machine vendors don't get it. What they want is, they want you to have all the messages. They want you to have all of the alarms. But in actual fact, from an operations point of view, if you're looking at this, you're just overwhelmed by too much data. And if you then try to take all of those 14 alarms and put them into an AI algorithm and say, show me my top losses, and analyze why these are happening with different materials and different characteristics and different environmental conditions, it's just noise. So it's really important that you design your system architecture and you design your data collection system. And even if you have legacy systems, so what we've done, we've got some machines that are, injection molding machines that are making millions of products a year and are 20 years old and are perfectly good machines. So what we do is we put a gateway system, a gateway PLC, in between the original equipment and our data collection system. And we use the gateway to filter out the noise. So we create the first out fault logic. We create the systems that allow us to say, this is what actually caused your downtime.
Very good. In relation then to, I suppose, coming back to the issue of partnerships, folks, and some of the collaboration efforts that you maybe have done, be it with third levels or other agencies or bodies. Andrew, I might come to you on this. Have you seen any initiatives which you guys have been able to get into other agencies or with other folks that are maybe of relevance to some of the audience today?
Yeah, I can tell you, I suppose one of the core open innovation programs that we're involved in, right from a skill set development, is with UCC and the Marine Energy Institute. So we've partnered with them to, I suppose, bring on board 4 PhD students, okay, over the last 2 years. And I think what's really, really powerful about this is, so the 4 skill sets that we've brought in are individuals. They're working on 4 very different areas of, let's say, digitization. So one of the individuals is working all around the energy and sustainability piece, right? Exactly, Megan, kind of what you were talking about from a facilities perspective, but also at a machine level. And I think what that partnership allows us to do is it allows us to have someone fully researching the area, understanding what's happening in other industries outside of our own kind of factory, right? So that's really, really powerful. And then in that subset as well, we also have one of the individuals who's working directly on, very focused on the predictive analytics piece, but really on preventative maintenance. And I think a big aspect of that is really kind of what Brendan Shephard was talking about, was we've a lot of machines, okay, which provide us with reams and reams of data, but trying to figure out what's actually a critical input that we need to understand that will drive a valuable output on a production floor, okay? And one of the core deliverables as part of that PhD is to create a definitive asset framework for a particular set of machines. So then as a standard going forward, that will just be the standard data variables that we'll be extracting from a machine. And to do that work, if you had someone internally, it's a fair significant amount of time. So having that kind of open innovation partnership with the Marine Institute and UCC and CIT has enabled us to, I suppose, assign someone fairly significant amount of their time to work through that. And they sit with us 1 day a week in our facility, which is absolutely paramount because they get a real feel for the manufacturing production floor. They get to talk to the process SMEs across all of the functions, and they're really getting hands-on experience. So that's just an example of that open innovation, collaboration and partnership, where we're using our local institutes and universities to really research areas that we want to go after as part of our future advanced manufacturing strategy. And to date, it's really, really yielding significant benefits. And what we've done, even I would say in the last 12 to 18 months, is we've actually created, out of those research projects, we have created internal manufacturing projects, which we're actually deploying now to I suppose achieve certain dollar returns. So immediately, it's reaping the rewards, not alone even looking at the long term.
Very good. I'll come to Megan in 1 second, but it's supposed to be remiss of me not to mention, when you say that you guys are collaborating with the local folks in Cork, we remiss of me not to mention the Engineering South East initiative, which was, I suppose, spearheaded by Fran Hardyman in IT Carlow and Ken Thomas in WT. So huge thanks to them for all their work in the promotion of engineering in the Southeast. And for anyone who's watching, if you haven't engaged with Engineering in the Southeast, I would encourage you to absolutely engage with them, because there's loads of stuff going on, and there'll be more follow on that from that in the months to come. But just the same question to Megan then in relation to collaborating, as Andrew has outlined. How have you found that on your site?
Yeah, no, I suppose we've been very lucky. Obviously, Astellas is a member of the large industry energy network run by the SAI, so we've been able to collaborate with other pharmaceutical companies in that, I suppose, forum, looking at kind of benchmarking against each other, recognizing that obviously we all do very similar things and we're not really in competition with each other, so we can kind of information share and try and maximize opportunities for growth and learning, really. We also look at, I suppose, collaborations with universities as well. So we would have an innovation partnership with the University of Limerick, where we had looked at, I suppose, recycling is a massive thing on site, and also minimization of waste. So we looked at the separation of PVDC and foil that we have on site would be a massive waste stream for us and for pharmaceuticals world over. So kind of like what you would see your capsules in the PVC and foil, that cannot be recycled. It has to be sent for incineration, because they're two very different waste streams. So we're working with the University of Limerick on a scalable project for looking at how those waste streams can be separated into two valuable waste streams as opposed to being incinerated. So we're constantly looking at that moving forward.
Very good. And I'm just conscious, thanks for that, Megan. I'm just conscious of time. We're probably coming towards the end of our session, but just over to Brendan. In relation to collaboration, I suppose, and some of the funding streams that you're seeing, how are you seeing the uptake from the companies that you're working with, and what do you think, I suppose, companies can maybe get their teeth into?
I think the opportunities are fantastic. We're doing a project at the moment in an industrial spray dryer, so one of the biggest energy consumers in Munster. And we've gathered more than 2 million data points since we put in our data collection system. And now we're working with CDAR, the Centre for Advanced Data Analytics in UCD, and CIT in Cork. So we have a multinational world-class manufacturing company. So we have a consortium, if you like, of end user, integrator, and analytics and software development. And I think Ireland is very fortunate in the ecosystem, the way that we can tap into these resources and world-class research and world-class academics to solve real life situations. So, and the interest level from a manufacturing point of view, in terms of again, it goes back to the adding value. We're doing this to add value, to reduce energy, to make the process more. And I think once companies understand It's not just AI to talk about AI for the sake of AI. It's about, can this analytics really add value to the manufacturing process? So I think it's the start of a very interesting, I think the next few years in the whole area of AI and machine learning. I think it's going to be a very interesting space. We've just gotten approval on a Horizon 2020 project with CDAR as well, and again, there's a huge amount of interest right across Europe around manufacturing and digital innovation and that kind of thing. So this is applicable across multiple sectors in manufacturing.
Very good, thanks, Brendan. I just popped back to Toby just in relation to, I suppose, just to round off the piece on collaboration. You might just touch on some of the other things that are in the ecosystem that companies might be aware of. The DTIF, for example, what is that and how can companies get involved?
Sure. I mean, the panel, there's various support mechanisms have been mentioned. Innovation partnership has been mentioned, PhD students, that could be through SFI fellowship or Marie Curie. And then, you know, I've mentioned our own R&D supports. But yeah, the Disruptive Technology Innovation Fund is an initiative from the Department of Business Enterprise Innovation to support projects of scale, R&D projects that have a disruptive technology dimension. So they're projects of scale. They have to be commercially relevant within the 3 to 5 year timeframe, involving an SME and other enterprise partners, as well as academic institutions. So it's an excellent way to bring together a collaborative consortia of companies to tackle and embrace and capitalize on the disruptive technology element. So we see huge uptake in the life science industry, particularly if you think about the connected health megatrend. So looking at dressings, wound dressings, or point of care technologies that are going to revolutionize that industry sector. So there's a huge emphasis on that. You know, because we have massive life science, medtech, and biopharma industry sector, there's naturally going to be a very progressive uptake of disruptive technology there. So, but across other industry sectors, automotive, aerospace, conventional engineering, manufacturing, and technology, ICT, very, very diverse cross section of companies that are involving in this collaborative fund. So I think it's, you know, we can assist the companies to interrogate the ecosystem, to see who's who, to see what research centers are doing what the universities are doing, where the pockets of excellence are. So, you know, the technologists in the IDA and partners in Enterprise Ireland, we're on hand to go out and put the feelers out and see who's doing what.
So we're just coming to the end, Toby, so I'll just ask you for your key message or your key takeaway for the folks watching in relation to digitalization of manufacturing. Put you on the spot.
I think well, we're going to take some case studies, some exemplars. We're going to look at you know, who's really leading the way. What are they doing? Who are they working with? You know, we have amazing technology. We have amazing sub-supply, the engineering sub-supply and technology sub-supply, systems integrators, machine builders, automation, digitization, IoT specialists. So if we can identify exemplars and get the message out from peer-to-peer messaging, I think it's a good way to drive the message forward across the industry base.
Yeah, and I'll go to Brendan Shephard next. Brendan, what's your key takeaway or your key message, folks watching around this area?
I think we talked about, you know, having clear vision on the problem to be solved, and set a really clear objective on a short sprint. You know, don't make this a 12 to 18 month project. What can you do in 2 to 3 months? Deliver success, and then success will build success. From that, people will get it. You know, engagement. Andrew talked about it earlier. Engagement of all of the stakeholders, from operations all the way up through to leadership. If you don't have that engagement, then people are not going to back it. And that will uncover other issues around capability, training, skill sets. How do you integrate the lean team? How do you integrate operational excellence? All of those things have to come together. But if you try and boil the ocean, you'll end up with, you know, a very unsuccessful project. And we have seen projects where we've end up coming in afterwards, and companies had started and they just started asking about sensors and asking about technology, and not really saying, well, what is the problem we're trying to solve here?
Very good, thanks, Brendan. Andrew, same question to you.
Yep, just for myself, very similar to Brendan. I think first is really understand the business and the customer why. That's paramount, because you could very quickly lose your position on the road you're taking, right? So that's one of the main things. And I'd say secondly as well, that real test and learn sprint methodology. It doesn't cost huge amounts of investments to partner, have an innovation partnership with a local vendor, quickly test something out, learn what works, what doesn't work for you in the business, and fail fast and fail early if needed. And then that will help you redirect to, I suppose, a more optimal route. So I think there's some of the core pieces, and that having that engagement with the wider functions in your business, and making sure you're all working towards that one blueprint or strategy on digitization is massive. Because I would say as well, this is an awareness or an educational journey for a lot of us across all functions in all manufacturing. So collectively going on that learning and awareness journey together, I think is critical for any success in this space.
Excellent, thanks, Andrew. And Megan, I'll ask you the same question, and then we'll just do a wrap.
Yeah, no problem. My answer would be largely the same as Andrew and Brendan. It is that idea of that you need to define what your goal is, and also define what your strategy is. So, like as I said previously, you cannot control what you do not measure. So from a sustainability point of view, from a digitalization point of view, information is key, and looking at making sure that you have the best information possible, but also when you look to interpret your information, what you think is the problem may not necessarily be the problem. And that's always the interesting step, really, and kind of knowing that what you think is the obvious answer is probably not the obvious solution necessarily. So those are the key things I think that Astellas has learned throughout this process.
Very good. Well, look, I'm just conscious that we're coming to the end, and obviously people want to get to lunch. There is a number of videos coming up that you can continue to watch. So I encourage everyone to continue to watch those. Just a couple of thank yous. I want to obviously thank our guests today, Andrew Hickey, Megan Staunton, and Brendan Shephard, and my colleague Toby Sainsbury for their insights. I think we've had a very good discussion around this area. It's a very interesting area, quite daunting if you look at it from the point of view of the holistic piece. But I think from what our contributors have said today, you know, you take one bit at a time and different pieces of the jigsaw, and you just get in as much as you can and just focus on doing one small bit at a time well, and the rest will follow. So thank you so much to everyone who has been watching, and thank you to our sponsors, Waterford County Council, and I suppose our own organisation, IDA, for today's sponsorship. And a huge thank you to Linda Lawton and Jared from the Chamber, who've put in so much effort behind the scenes. And I also want to thank Jared Fenner and Mary Barton from the EI Global Sourcing team, who've just done absolutely fantastic work in relation to the global sourcing event, the Meet the Buyer, which is running kind of before and after each day. So with that, I'll wrap. Thank you all so much, and I'll hand back to Gerald from the Council, or for the Chamber even.
Thanks, everyone.